Coming up on episode 160 of Create If Writing, I'm talking about how to find time to write.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hello, creatives. This is Kirsten Oliphant, your host at Create If Writing. And this is the podcast for you, a writer, blogger, or creative who wants to build an online platform without being smarmy. And in today's episode, I'm going to tackle, it's really a question that I get asked all the time, which is specifically to me, how in the world do you write and do what you do with 5 kids? So I'm going to talk about personal things and how I actually do it, and then also give you guys some good tips, because let's just be honest, like what works for me is probably not going to work for you, or may not, or you may be able to pick and choose. Either way, I think process and time and all that is so specific to the individual, so I'm going to give you some great ideas on how to find what works for you. I'm so glad that you are here, whether this is your first or 160th time to listen to the podcast. And if you're not sure how to listen, or if you're a new listener, you can find the podcast basically almost everywhere. I do not have an Alexa skill yet. We'll work on that, but you can listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Play or iHeartRadio or any other podcast app. You can also go to createifwriting.com, and there is a podcast tab on there where you can listen to a player in there. These episodes go up on YouTube without actual video. It just has a static image. I also share those on Facebook. So lots of places to listen, no matter how you like to listen. If you want the show notes for today's episode with links and just to read it, you can go to createifwriting.com/160. So speaking of time, let's not waste any more, and let's get right into how to find the time to write. And just semantics. Let's just be semantic for a second. Really, we all know what this means is not how to find the time, but how to make it, because chances are you're not going to find time. It's not just hanging out, waiting to be found. We all have busy schedules, whether you have 5 kids like me or not. I felt just as busy or stressed out when I had 1 kid. So people are always like, oh, I've only got 1. I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, no. I remember having 1. It was really rough at times, especially with just 1, because I didn't know what I was doing. It was really stressful. So it was almost like the mental pressure of having 1 child versus 5 was maybe more intense, because now I've kept 1 alive for 11 years almost. And so I feel like, okay, we've got this a little bit. I'm still screwing it up, but we've got it. So whatever the case is, we're not really finding time, we're making time. And I want to give you guys some specifics on how to do that. So this is the question I get asked all the time. And again, whatever your situation is, it's rough. You may have a job, you may have kids, you may have any number of other kinds of things going on, or you just may be struggling. You may have lots of time. I actually write more now than I did when I was in graduate school and had nothing to do but go to graduate school and write for my workshops, because I was in graduate school for writing. I know no kids, husband, and we just kind of hung out, and I wasted a lot of time. And when we were first married, I didn't have a job for a while. I could have been writing then. So I get more done now. And sometimes that's just about being smarter. So whatever your situation is, maybe you have lots of time and you're just not doing it. So let's start with this. I've got a process for you guys. The first step in this is you're going to evaluate your current circumstances. And this is really important because we need to have realistic expectations. I'm going to kind of hit on that again and again. And this changes your circumstances right now. Evaluate your current circumstances, because you may have things that take up your time. Again, like you may have a job, part-time, full-time, whatever it is. You may have children. You may have a set schedule of things and activities that will not change. So you need to look at those, but it's not just about the things that take up your time, because if we're being honest, like we're whole people. We're not just compartmental, even though I'm great at compartmentalizing, for the record. You might have emotional things too. Perhaps you're going through a really rough time in your life. Maybe you're struggling with depression. Maybe you have someone in your family who has chronic illness, or someone has been diagnosed with autism, one of your kids, or you're just struggling with other emotional issues. You had a breakup. It could be any number of those things. Those all factor in to your current circumstances and how you're going to have time to write. Just realize that, because you need to be easy on yourself. Yes, I want you to challenge yourself, but there's this sense sometimes that we put this big burden of expectation on ourselves. And I know that I have done that. And then when you fail to live up to it, you get defeated. And then that actually creates a problem and a cycle in which it's really hard to break out of. So I have been in that cycle. And I'll share, this is a good time to do this. I guess I could have done it before I jumped into the steps, but I'll share with you how it's gone for me, and how this looked for me over the past 11 years. So I got out of graduate school in 2007. I got my MFA in fiction and was working on a novel that I worked on that whole year of 2007. But I also got pregnant in the fall. We had our first child in May of 2008. So I was working on a novel, and right before he was born, it got sent to an agent. I picked up an agent, and then we did some editing and then sent it off to publishers. So kind of between 2008 and 2009, I was dealing with traditional things. I was dealing with an agent, and editing a manuscript and waiting to hear back. And I think that I'm trying to think if it was 2009 or 2010, but either way, I was kind of in this world where I was trying to do this, and it was really frustrating. That book did not get picked up, but the publishers actually wanted to see more from me. So my agent was like, just send me the next thing you had. I was already working on something else, and I could not make myself do it. And looking back, I think I was not taking into account enough the emotional struggle of having one child. Literally, I probably had more time then than I do now, with 5 kids. But at the same time, when you just have one child and it's that first year, that is a really emotional time. Your hormones are crazy, as well as everything else. So you're dealing with a lot more than just how much time does a baby take up, but also baby takes up a lot of time. And I really wanted to enjoy it. I spent a lot of time just holding my son with all my kids when they were infants. I spent a lot of time. I didn't do the whole put your baby down whenever they're sleeping. No, I hung on to those little people because I surprisingly loved the baby stage, probably because mine were easy. But I didn't take into account, getting back to this, and not getting too distracted by stories of children, I didn't have the emotional bandwidth. So this was really rough for me. And over time, as our kids got older, as I got more confident and was able to eke out more time, I wasn't able to write books, but I was able to blog. And so blogging became the creative outlet that I had. And I really kept trying to find the time to write and kept not being able to do it, and feeling I would get so frustrated that it would make me not want to write, because I would set aside time and something would happen. Usually it was external circumstances. Like I would set aside these office hours to write, and then somebody would start teething and they'd wake up during those office hours, even though they were supposed to be sleeping, because it was like midnight, because that's when I had my office hours. And so, for years I sort of struggled with that. And the point of this is this: you need to take into account all of the circumstances in your life, the emotional things and the time, to see what you can handle. I don't think that I could have handled this. I don't think I could have switched anything else around in my life to write novels. Maybe if I was writing literary fiction, it was a little bit dark, really heavy. Maybe if I'd been trying to write clean romance like I am now, but I don't think I could have even done that. I just did not have the bandwidth to do it. So that is why this evaluating your circumstances is so incredibly important. But you have to keep evaluating them, because I then felt like, okay, until my kids are all in elementary school, I'm not ever going to be able to write a book. And last year I decided to kind of shake that up. I'd written some nonfiction books, devotionals, and, my Email Lists Made Easy book and creative collaborations. But in terms of writing fiction, I just didn't think I could do it. And I just told myself I wouldn't. And last year when I tried it, I actually found that it was a joy to write in a different genre, writing as Emma St. Clair under, the whole clean romance where it was just light and happy. There's always a happy ending. It was a great escape. And never would I ever thought that I would write. And so I'm really glad that I did challenge myself to look at my circumstances again and think, can I do this? Because then I could, even though beforehand I'd been firm, okay, I won't ever do this till my circumstances change. Well, I was able to actually change what kind of writing I was doing, and that made it possible. I don't think it would have been possible again when my kids were really little and I just had the two kids who were little, and I was figuring out motherhood in my life, I don't think I could have done it then, but I can do it now. So you do need to evaluate and then reevaluate those circumstances to see what you can do and have normal, good, healthy expectations of yourself. So you're not beating yourself up when you can't meet them. If you can't meet those expectations, then you need to shift them. So after you've evaluated your circumstances, you want to make a plan. And this is kind of just continuing on with what I just said. Once you've kind of considered those things that are going on in your life, you're going to make a plan. And again, with the expectations, realize your plan might fail. This is how I work. I get really defeated and got really defeated when my plan failed. So when I knew that publishers were waiting for my second book and I had an agent and I felt really good about this, I decided my office hours would be between 10 p.m., which is around when my husband goes to bed because he needs lots of sleep and I need like none. Between 10 p.m. and midnight, those were my office hours. Every day I would write for 2 hours. And that got knocked off so quickly. Somebody would start teething or just wake up and have nightmares and I would have to get up and my husband was asleep. So I had that night duty. And I got so frustrated. I didn't want to be frustrated with my kids. And that's something that has been really consistent throughout all of this is I didn't want to ever write in a way or take time to blog in a way that I was getting mad when I got interrupted. So this is why I almost never write at home when my kids are home. And part of why I never thought I could write a book because my kids are always home. So that was really rough. But that was supposed to be my office hours and I couldn't maintain it. And I got so mad that I really just quit. Again, I think that if I'd been looking at my larger circumstances and been more self-aware, which of course you always are more self-aware after, I don't think I realized how much emotional toll and stress motherhood was taking on me. But the frustration of not meeting my expectations crashed me. So instead of looking for a new plan that would work, I just gave up. And I just kind of blogged when I could, but I didn't make a new plan for writing. So realize when you make a plan, it may fail and don't get frustrated. If you already know it might not work and you might have to look at a different plan, then you might be less frustrated and not do what I did, which is just give up. So plan. And know, again, that they're going to probably need adjustments or tweaking. And as circumstances in your life change, that plan may change. Don't let the fact that it's changing make you feel like a failure. So after that, the third thing you're going to do after you think about your life and what your circumstances are and make a plan that you know may need tweaking here and there, learn how you work best. And this is going to be really important as well, because we're talking about how to write, how to find the time to write, how to make the time to write. If you find the ways that you work best and the circumstances in which you work best, then you're going to write more effectively. The thing is, though, you may not always have a choice. So back to what I used to do, my only time I really could write was nighttime, and that wasn't really working for me. For the last, I don't know how many years, gosh, my life feels like a big blur now of just children and writing. But I think for the last couple years, I've been mostly writing at night because that's what I had to do. Now that I have more of a choice as our circumstances have changed, I am a much faster and better writer in the morning. Although I will still sometimes have times where I can sit down at night and write really well, but often by the end of the day, my brain is just kind of mush. And so I will take on tasks like finding photos for covers or doing social media work or other things that don't require my writing brain. So you may not have the choice, but find what's best for you. This is not just the time to work, but this is where you work. I work best not at home. I work best at a coffee shop, or I've been doing the Y so I don't spend so much money because for heaven's sakes, it's like $5 to get a coffee at Starbucks. And it's hard to find a place. Also, I've found that there are certain coffee places, because there's other places than Starbucks, but some of them, like, they don't have the right ambiance. Like, I feel stressed when I'm there, or I can't find a table that has a plug and my computer needs to get plugged in to charge the batteries and those kinds of things. So there's certain areas and places I work best and feel more peaceful and comfortable. Going to a place for the first time is always stressful for me. So if I'm going to go write, I probably don't want to go somewhere new. I probably want to go that new place and check it out first. Again, this is me. This is me learning how I work best. And then also how I work well on writing on my laptop. Some people write better on paper and actually write longhand in notebooks. I can also write really well on my phone on the elliptical machine. And so I've done that as well. You need to figure out how you work best. Do you work best under pressure? Is it helpful to have some kind of outside deadline for you? It's not for me. And I've learned that if I have a pre-order, if I don't get it done way ahead of time, I stress out, flake out, and like I did in April, or actually March, I canceled a pre-order, which if you do that on Amazon, and actually I didn't cancel it, I moved the date forward, which means in Amazon that they take away your ability to pre-order for a year. Now, I was able to finish the book 2 days later than I was originally supposed to. So then I pushed the pre-order date back and published it, I think 3 or 4 days past the original date, which was fantastic. And then I emailed Amazon and they actually gave me grace. And so I have my pre-orders back. Yay. They may not always do that, but those hard and firm deadlines are not helpful for me. They get me into a state of panic. So again, this is how I work. Figure out what works best for you, because I don't work well, and you probably don't either, in a state of panic. So if deadlines make you panic, give yourself loose deadlines or figure out how this works best for you. And then you're going to work faster and do better things with the minimal time or whatever amount of time you have. Okay, so the next thing, we've evaluated our circumstances, made a plan that's changeable, tried to figure out how we work best. And sometimes it just takes time to figure that out over time, and you will learn that over time, and you may not be able to rush it. But next, you need to know your limits and then respect them. It is very easy to compare yourself to other people and try to measure yourself against what they do. And this was really freeing for me when I was doing a lot of like research and listening to like the entrepreneurial type of things last year and the years before. But I heard someone say, and this has been said a lot, that you shouldn't measure your start against someone else's middle. So if you're looking at someone who's been around for a couple of years and measuring your success against theirs, don't. That's not going to be really helpful for you. And there's a real difference between looking around at how other people are doing and what they're doing for research purposes and doing it to compare yourself. And only you are really going to know if you're doing that. So you got to be honest with yourself. But it's not about comparison. You don't want to try to shove yourself into the mold that someone else has made. If you can learn from them, great, but don't feel like you have to be them. As an example of this, I'm a fast writer. That's just how I work. I'm fast in a lot of things. I like to get things done. I read books quickly. I write quickly. That's me. Sometimes I'm faster than others, but sometimes I'm slower. Great. That may not work for you. You may not be able to publish a book a month. And actually some months this year, like in January, I wrote 2 books. I didn't publish them both, but they both are written. That, again, may not be your thing. Now, I will say that every so often, kind of like with the evaluating your circumstances and making the plan and tweaking, you need to challenge yourself and not just get stuck like I did thinking, okay, I'm never going to be able to do this writing thing till my kids are in school. Well, last year I challenged that and found, oh, hey, I actually can. And I know a good writer friend, Andy Cumbo Floyd, who I've been sharing some books that she's written. She wrote a series that I loved, the first one called Steal Secrets, and I highly recommend it. But I was talking to her and she was like, I'm really impressed with this whole writing fast thing and I'm going to try it. And she knocked out her first draft of a book really quickly. And she was like, I didn't know I could do it. And that's the thing. Sometimes you don't know what you can do. So it's important to constantly test your limits. Don't compare yourself to somebody else. Don't put unrealistic expectations, but every so often challenge your expectations of yourself and see, okay, does this still hold true of me? Am I still a slower writer? Or is there a way in which I could actually write a book faster than I thought? And if you can't, don't be disappointed in yourself. Just temper your expectations. But it is good to challenge yourself because you might be holding yourself back with that limiting thinking, which is what I definitely did. So I made the mistake of sort of setting a plan and making a mental sort of expectation for what I could do with my circumstances. And I was wrong. I needed to push myself out to realize that. And the first time I wrote a book quickly, which I wrote The Billionaire Love Match, which is my most highly reviewed, it's got almost 100 reviews on Amazon. That one I wrote in 2.5 weeks. Start to finish, like sent off to someone for proofreading. It was done. I did not have any idea that I could do that. And I'm not always that fast. That book just really came together. But knowing that I could do it made me realize every month, I don't push myself to write a book a month. I just know that I can. I know that it's possible. And so it doesn't feel like pressure to me. It just feels like, oh, I'm able to do this. It's not a big deal. Once it didn't feel like a big deal mentally, then it was a lot easier for me to do it. So know your limits and respect them, but every so often you need to test them. And then finally, those are the main things, but this last one is kind of what I'm tacking on. As you go, you need to kind of find the hacks and the tips that work for you. So this involves reading things, listening to other people, or asking around. Because often you'll find a tip from someone else that's invaluable. And I'll share this example. As I was trying to find more time to write, I was in a Facebook group for moms, and somebody was saying, how do I get this done? I'm trying to do I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I'm also working from home, and I just can't work with my kids around, which is my situation. My kids, I just don't. I either get mad at them, which I don't want to be that mom, or they're just too busy and need a lot more. They need me to keep them from dying because they're climbing up onto the roof of our house. True story. So that's just not going to work for me. So I was reading this thread of all these different tips. Some of them I was like, ugh, that wouldn't ever work. Like, just put on the TV. Well, no, that just doesn't work in my house. So unless it's an emergency situation, that's not going to work. My kids do watch plenty of TV, but that doesn't help me write books. So one of the things that a mom said is, I joined 2 gyms. And I was like, what? She's like, I joined 2 gyms. You get 2 hours of childcare. So I go to 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. So I get 2 hours of work in the morning and 2 hours of work in the afternoon with the childcare. And I was like, that kind of blew my mind at first. And then my mom guilt kind of hit me, and I was like, oh my goodness, that sounds terrible. And then I did the math and was like, okay, so my kids get up at 6 and they go to bed at 7 or 8. So I'm with them for like 13, 14 hours a day. Taking 4 of those away and going to a gym, 2 different gyms, that's nothing. I still have them for like 9 hours. Okay, cool. So I tried it. We already belonged to a gym that we work out at, and I still work out at. So we joined the Y, and I joined not to work out, although sometimes I work out there. I joined the Y for the childcare, and you get 6 days. So they're open 7 days, but you get 12 hours a week of childcare, and 2 hours at a time. So I can I can work at the Y for 6 days, 2 hours a day. They've got coffee in the lobby. My kids are happy. I'm happy. It's also a mental break for me. And once I get over the mom guilt, and also I don't do both gyms every day, but sometimes I do. I'll go work at the Y and then I'll go work out at the gym. And sometimes I'm working there too if I'm riding on the elliptical like I have this week. But this was like an unusual hack. Again, this may not work for you, but this was an amazing gift to me to realize I could do this. And when you add up how much it costs to get a babysitter per hour, and then realize that for me to join with my 5 kids, it's $75 a month. And every week I'm getting 12 hours of childcare. Oh my goodness, that is like the best deal ever. So, hey, maybe that hack will work for you. Or if you're trying to save money, again, $5 for coffee is driving me crazy. So I'm already paying for the Y. So I'll go there and sit in their lobby and drink coffee, even when I don't have my kids. I actually sat there this week, I think, for 6 hours in their lobby. I did not drink coffee for the full 6 hours, although I can, but I sat there for 6 hours and just wrote. So that's my specific hack I'm going to share with you. But pay attention, ask other people what's working for them, pick and choose, try things, and see which ones can apply to help you within your specific circumstances. So let me go through that list again that I've given you guys. So if you're trying to find/make time to write, first evaluate your circumstances, both in terms of time and also emotional and kind of all the things that are in your life. Then make a plan, knowing you're going to have to tweak and change as you go. Learn how you work best so that you can be more effective with the time you have. Know your limits, respect them, but also test them. And then find some hacks that work specifically for your life and your circumstances. That's it. So that's how I write books with 5 kids, is that I have figured out a plan that works for this particular season in my life. And I'm aware that it may change at any time. This summer, oh my goodness, I don't know how it's going to work this summer, having all the kids home, because right now we have 3 at home and 3 in school and then 2 at home most of the time. So it's going to switch up, and summertime just has to look a little different. And I've realized that, and I'm trying not to let myself get frustrated, but having realistic expectations. And I would say that mental part of this whole thing, if you kept hearing that, you kept hearing it because it's really important, so that you're not sort of short-circuiting your success by putting unrealistic expectations on yourself and then getting defeated when you can't reach them. So just keep that in mind over all this. I hope this helps you make more time to write and to write more effectively wherever you are right now in the season of life that you're at. Figure these things out and make your own personalized writing plan. All right, so again, if you want to find the show notes, you can go to createifwriting.com/160 for episode 160. If you want to get my weekly emails in the quick fix on Fridays with tools, resources, tips, and also the link to the podcast episodes, you can go to createifwriting.com/quick fix to sign up. And if you want to interact with the fabulous, wonderful members of the Creative Writing community, there's a free Facebook group. You just go to createifwriting.com/community to join us there. That's all I've got for you guys this week. A big thank you to Jasmine Commerce of JasmineCommerceMusic.com for the tunes you are currently hearing on this show. Thank you guys so much for listening. And now it's time for you to go out and create content that you love to serve your people well.